I'm John Barclay and welcome to the Fatality Free Future podcast.
My name is Holly Ferguson. This is the podcast where we explore the challenges and possibilities of creating a fatality free future. Our guest today, statistically speaking, shouldn't be alive. He's got an incredible story of survival, which he now uses to inspire others, which we'll be hearing all about today. Theo Venter, welcome to the Fatality Free Future podcast.
Well, that was excellently done. Well done, you. Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Theo, you're originally from South Africa. I'd love to hear a bit about what brought you to Australia before we dive into the rest of your story today.
Yeah, born and raised in South Africa, you know, the land of the Springbok. As I'm sure everyone knows the land of the Springbok, which is the rugby team. So when growing up from a very young age, you walk around the streets with a rugby ball and maybe sometimes a cricket bat, but nothing less than that. And from the age of about 7, my mum forced me into doing reciting poems. It's not something you do in South Africa. So I wouldn't have told any of my mates about what I'm doing on the sideline, but I won the national championships up to about 18 years old. So I never knew why this was happening until I look back at it today. And it was grooming me for something better in life, which, there was just a little background story. As I went through my electrical apprenticeships and worked at a couple of jobs, I got this an amazing opportunity to come over. I think I was 35 years old with my beautiful wife and 3 kids, and we took that opportunity with both hands and said yes, we'll come over and come basically live in the land of milk and honey.
Before we get into the next bit, do you feel like that poetry bit got you sort of into understanding storytelling and the power of stories and messages?
John, the reason I told you that, and I actually haven't told that to many people, is today when I look back at it, at those days I would never tell anyone that's what I'm doing, but there were so many little things and big things that happened throughout my journey in life that prepared me to be where I am today. It's incredible when you look back and you kind of think about the things that happened to you, and we all do that. You go, why did this happen to me? Or why did that? Or, why did this? And you look back at it and this has been your purpose all the way along. Being an electrician and a sparky and all these things are things that just added to where you needed to end up. And when I look back at it today, the most incredible things that happened, how I landed here and I ended up here it was mind-blowing. People couldn't believe it. You couldn't make it up. And one day I sat on a flight and I thought about all these things and I started writing them down and I went, wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm here for.
And you said, you got your electrician and then you came over to Australia, but it wasn't long after coming here that your day at work sort of changed your life forever. So do you want to sort of give us the context to that?
Yeah, well, landing here, my wife, my kids, everyone, and I remember thinking this is the most perfect moment of my life. Like everything was just absolutely perfect. My kids were loving the place. They went to schools. I was loving my job. Everything was just perfect for 3 months, only 3 months. We still went to Rottnest Island that last weekend. Monday morning you wake up and you kiss your little princess. My little princess was 5 years old. My 2 boys, 9 and 10. And you kiss them goodbye in the morning and you say, I'm off to work, and music pumping on our way to work. And from that moment when I arrived at work that day, looking back at it today, I can almost pinpoint every single hole in the cheese that lined up for me to end up at a pole where I was standing, my best mate standing behind me, and I said to him, mate, I'm struggling with a little nut on the power pole. And he said to me, we've changed, 1,000 of these insulators. It's a thing that you do every day. It's nothing out of the ordinary. And I just thought, well, if I can't get it off with my gloves on, let's just try without my gloves. And I didn't think at that stage, but I was so desensitized about what's around me that I took my protective gloves off with 22,000 volts around me. Can you imagine that? How do you get to that point? And I did. I put him between my knees and I pulled him off. Nico turned his back. He never saw what I was doing. I guarantee you, if he saw me doing that, he would have knocked me over the head, John. When I pulled him off, that moment when I could feel the wind on my hands, like the sweat, I can't describe the gut feel that I got at that stage. I don't know if you've ever heard of this absolute, like screaming at me, my gut saying, why are you doing this? This is the wrong thing. Don't do it. Screaming at me. I've never had it that strong in my life before. And then, you know, you look at your hands and you go, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And then there's this voice. Have you ever done something you shouldn't be doing and you got that gut feel you shouldn't be, and then you go ahead and do it anyway? Yeah. We all have. And I thought, you know, it's right there. It's convenient. It's so easy. I'll put my finger in. I'll do it. Shouldn't have done it. I pulled my hands back. I thought I got this insulator, and the next minute I had my right wrist on a steel cross arm and I put my left arm into 22,000 volts.
Oh, wow. Every time I hear you talk about that, it's always influenced me in a couple of things I speak to people about. You know, some common things in serious injuries and fatality events is it's more often than not a routine activity, something people do all the time. It's something that's generally been well understood as a high-risk activity, like the exposure on it. But we always don't understand the human nature of autopilot and just getting into doing things really without that conscious thinking. But you've always been able to describe the gut feeling that can be happening at the same time as the autopilot, which I just think's that ongoing challenge in those moments where people push through the gut feeling because the autopilots just keep moving forward, just keep doing whatever it is you had planned to do. So talks about the immediate aftermath of that and what that sort of experience was like.
Yeah, those moments I have had so many nightmares and so many dreams and so many times that I thought, wow, if I could just take that 5 seconds back, because all I needed was to stand back for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. All I needed was to just stand back and say, no, I can't do it. And just reassess it, talk to my mate, go down, have a bit of a chat. And those 5 minutes would have done nothing to the job, to the day. It had no significant influence on the day. All I needed to do was just do that. But in that moment when you're so focused and you're so ready to get this job done and not thinking about how safe you get it done, but let's get it done, that just overwhelmed me so much. And that's the time. The moment I touched, so the insulator just started to turn after I loosened the bolt and the nut. I instinctively grabbed the insulator so it doesn't fall. Dropped objects is a bad thing. So when I pulled my left hand out to stop it from falling, I touched the 22,000 volt line. I had my right wrist on the steel crossarm. The crossarm itself had a big thick earth all the way down to earth. So I became the little fuse between 22,000 volts straight through my heart, out my left arm. And when that electricity took hold of me, I can clearly, vividly remember that my muscles starting to pull in immediately. It was like a massive hit on my chest. My arms pulled in, and I just I screamed, and it was 22,000 volts and 1,200 amps, which can kill 1,000 men. It's unsurvivable. And when you sit like that for a half a second, you are dead. But it's because my arms pulled in and I got drawn into it, I got stuck into it, and it went on for 2.5 seconds. And I can remember every single millisecond of that moment when just everything flashed through my head. I knew exactly what was going on, and I couldn't stop it from happening. I was just ripped through my veins. My skin melted, and then I dropped into the basket. My helpless body was there was nothing left. They took us down, and all the training luckily started kicking in and everything. And as I was down in the basket, my mate Nico called my manager with a message that Theo's been electrocuted, he's dead. they thought, because the smoke was coming out of me.
Normally, someone would actually probably die within 2 days of experiencing what you experienced. What was it like waking up in hospital in those following months that you spent there?
So they raced me to hospital that day, obviously, and from experience, and I've been working with electricity, high voltage electricity, for so many years, I've seen so many people die. I've seen people with half the electricity just last a day or two because the infection sets in and you die, which meant when I got there and I was settled in with antibiotics and painkillers rushing through me, the first time the door opens was my wife, and the doctors already said to her, please, you need to say your goodbyes, you're not going to make it. And I remember she was begging me not to die because we just got there. I mean, we just got there 3 months ago. It just was so amazing. But then my little princess and my 2 boys was outside the room and they were screaming for their daddy. Sorry. Which I'll never forget. That was the hardest thing for me to know that such a insignificant little thing like a nut that I needed to take out got me so desensitized that I took my gloves off and I forgot about the bigger picture, my family, my things that I did there. And I remember the doctors, I said to the doctor, if they can bring my kids in, I just want to hug them for the last time because I knew I wasn't going to survive it through the day or through the night. And they said, Theo, you are blown up. You smell absolutely terrible. You can see the marks. I mean, the smell of burnt human flesh was just revolting. And they said, don't let your kids see you. Don't let them see you like this. They need to remember you the way you were, not the way you look now. So it was one of the hardest things I've done in my life, was to say goodbye to my kids without seeing them, like without giving them a hug and a kiss and say goodbye. Into that first night, I blamed myself for so many things, and I knew I wasn't going to make it. And it was that night about 1 o'clock in the morning when I thought, if I had this dream, if I had one more perfect day in life, what would a day like that look like for me? If I could I know it was impossible, the dream was impossible, everything was impossible, but if I could wake up and have one single day totally healthy and with everything that I want in life, how would that go for me? Who would I spend it with? Where would I go? In other words, what was my highest values? And I could not think anything more than just across the road going to a park and just imagining my little princess running around and singing and dancing. It's the most amazing thing with a family and my 2 boys playing rugby. And, that was a fairly simple dream. But it was an impossible dream. But if I had that in my mind and I died, I might die in peace. I kept that dream alive throughout. By day 5, they said to me, I'm not going to die, which was a nice thing to do. They sent me to radiology. And then I had an amazing Dr. Fiona would come and help me do the first 17 surgeries, helping me in the first month. Well, actually the first 7. And then they were going to chop my arms off, and then because my arms were really, really bad. And then there was this plastic surgeon came in and said, maybe I can help. So he took over and he did the last 10 surgeries, removing my back muscle, putting on my arm. It was just a marathon of amazing people that does these amazing things, and you just lay there and they do it to you. And I never understood why the doctor's name is Dr. Han Newing that saved my arms. And he put his practice on the line for me, for someone he's never met before. And if he's going to die, it's your problem. Your practice is gone. And Dr. Han Newing said, give me a go. I'll do it. That same Dr. Han Newing started ReadyMed in 2010. And ReadyMed is now a national-wide company, which our lives grew parallel. He's still my best mate for saving my arms. Every time I lift a beer, I know that I say thanks to him. So it was just about 5 months from the time I got into the time they released me.
All through and coming out the other side of that. I mean, I know there's a lot more to that story afterwards, but I'm really keen. At what moment did all this inspire you to inspire others? How did that moment come to you that it inspired you to start doing something to help other people?
Remember how I said things happen that you can't explain, and then you just look back one day and you go, wow. It was one of those moments. 2 years after my incident, my first finger started moving. So for 2 years, I couldn't do anything. I went through a really bad time in those first 2 years. Got divorced, wife left, got the 3 kids, holding on to the 3 kids. When my finger started moving, it was a big thing. 2 years later than that, I started working. After 2 years, I went back to my workplace and they asked me to come and work for them again, which was amazing. But 2 or 3 years after that, my first hand, I could pick up a pen, which was a big thing for me. I could pick up some stuff with my one hand. And it was about 5 years in when I got a phone call from a total stranger working for Western Power. And he said to me, "Hey, Theo, my name is Gary Chart, and I'd like to know if you want to share your story." And I said, "Mate, I've got no story. I don't want to tell anyone. I don't want to, just leave me alone." Anyway, kept on calling me for weeks on, and then one day he walked into the shop and he said, "Look, I need to talk to you." And he made me that day, I won't go through all this, but he made me write down my story, which was significant because after 5 years, I've never thought of what happened to me as always what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know if it makes sense. When you've got kids and you've got things, you've got bread to make and kids need to go, there's always things to happen, and you can't afford to reflect. You can only look forward. Yeah. And I sat that weekend and I kind of write down in my broken pen thing, and the tears started flowing, and I reflected on everything. And I kept on writing, and anyway, I gave it to him and I said, "Leave me alone now." So the next Friday, he came back with a written whole thing, and his wife, Jackie, just did everything for me. And and he says, "Is this your story?" And I read the story in front of him, and he goes, "Mate, you sound like I'm a bloody hero. I'm not. I broke so many. Such a devastation." He said, "Is that your story?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Come." So we jump in a car. We go to the Wacker. We walk into a room there, and there's 300 suits sitting in this room. And he goes, "Mate, you're just going to tell your story to these mates of mine." So I didn't know what to do, and I went up there and I stood in front of these people. And if there's some of them that listens to this today, please keep in contact. Please contact Holly and John, because thanks for helping me and letting me share this, because that day I opened up for the first time and I told them my whole story, and it was tears. And it was only after that day they tried to get me in again. I was too embarrassed. I could never do it again. But it was 8 months later when they offered me petty cash one day. This is embarrassing.
Okay.
They offered me $75 petty cash to go and do another one for them. Because workers' comp, and I was desperate for money. I went and did it, and that's where it began. And they just didn't stop and asked me to do it again and again. And then I started a business. I quit my job, and that was in 2010 in September.
16 years ago, then.
Yep.
Wow. So you've had 16 years of really honing in on what you want to say to people, how you want to say it, what you want them to walk away with. What are some things that you aim to impart with people in your sessions with them?
Yeah, that's one thing I never understood. I thought it was all about me and my story in the start, and I am this one and I'm that one, and then very, very, very quickly realized a few years in that it's got nothing to do with me. My story is to be able to tell a story the way I do, and I'm really, really good at it, and get the trust and the openness and honesty and the authenticness of that vulnerability, and share it with them. That emotional connection that I form with the people, regardless if it's working on a coalface or corporate leaders, it does not matter. When you're getting into that into that limbic brain in your heart. That's the first step. And then once they formulate that drive with me, and we go through the motions and the tears and the happiness, at the end, I have a workforce in front of me that is like sponges. The authentication is there, the trust and the sense of disclosure is there. They want to share whatever they have done and whatever they did with me, and that's something extremely special. So when I finish at the end, throughout the story, I bring out 6 of the most poignant points, the most incredible stages of my story. I bring it out of my story, and I will summarize it at the end, and every single one of those points means something deeper. It's got something deeper. The first one is when me and my family decided to come over to Australia, we were still sitting in South Africa. My dad always taught me that openness and honesty and authenticness and ownership is a big thing. So I taught my kids even that agreements, when you make an agreement with someone, it is extremely important because you give them your word, and your word is everything you got. So the agreements model that I do now is cultivating extreme ownership and personal responsibility, which is the two of the golden products that we could have on site and in our mind. So when I said to my family, I want to make an agreement with them that we will go over and I will make sure that we live in Australia forever safely, I broke that agreement when I got through the incident. And that breaking that word of mine is the first thing that I want them to understand, that when you make an agreement, it's in blood. You mean it and you come back to it. And that's it. The second one is the gut feel. So the gut feel, and I understand and I explain the gut feel afterwards if the question arises up about the limbic brain and the neocortex brain, and how the gut feel comes from the limbic, and it gives you that signal into your gut telling you you're doing something wrong. But the power of the neocortex brain is so strong that it overrides you, and you go ahead and do it anyway. So all that is, the light bulbs goes on with that thing. And every incident I've investigated afterwards is someone would tell me, Theo, I got that gut feel that something is going to go wrong, and we get there. Then the third one is my favorite, obviously, is my dream of my perfect day, and I throw that back at them. Because what now happens is I give them, in that very vulnerable state, I give them the opportunity to imagine what their perfect world looks like. And that is powerful. Because now in the workplace, they're sitting thinking about what's the most highest value in their life. Yeah. And that's the crux. That's the one thing that you need to know. The next two is targeting. I've seen too many people having that keystone habits on site where they just can't break it, especially the older generation. I've done it for so many years. I've done it. When I came out of hospital, things went really, really bad for me, and I got severely depressed and anxiety, and I was suicidal. The moment before I killed myself, I counted 5 brave seconds down. Now, this makes me very, it gives me so much emotion, because that 5 brave seconds that I counted down before I killed myself was the most powerful 5 seconds I've ever in my life had to deal with something so brave. I really dug deep, and I counted 5 brave seconds down to digest, see what I'm about to do, just stand back for a second, rethink what I'm about to do, and then gave myself digging so deep and be so brave to go and call someone and say, listen, help me. I need help. And that's the reason I sit here today. I also use that brave seconds when some other bad stuff happened, and I had to get up for the last time and, just fight to go and brush my teeth in the morning. It was the biggest fights I have. So those were really deep, dark things. And people that's gone through some of these things that I'm talking about will totally understand how hard it is to get out of bed sometimes when you just don't have it. But those 5 brave seconds was so important to me. And then what follows up on that is then after the 5 brave seconds, you take a step in the right direction that can become the biggest leap of your life, which 100% why I'm sitting here is I took that step that morning. I went in there and I did what I needed to do. And it was a fight in my head, but, you keep on fighting and get there. The last one is the why, and the why is that's what we're all here for, isn't it? It's like if someone told me before my incident how important my why was, and that whatever I'm doing at work is a means to an end. It's not everything. It's a means to get to my why. If that whole package could be delivered to me, that's what saves lives.
And you always mention, and you and I spoke about this a couple of times, around just how important it is to invoke that limbic brain, the emotion side, and so we hear all the time organisations bringing teams in and doing commitment work and purpose work and path forward work and all those sorts of things, but generally don't do the front work, which is invoke the emotion around why am I doing this work and why do I need to think this through. And I want to sort of go back to something you said during the incident around you struggling with the nut. That's sort of become symbolic in that process of invoking emotion, hasn't it?
Oh, that nut has started getting its own life. It is incredible. I've got thousands and thousands of photos of people sending me photos of their little 12mm nut they received in one of my presentations 10 years, 15 years ago. Yeah. They will still send me photos of how, and with a story aligned with how that nut got them through some hard, and I'm not even talking work and safety at the moment. It's the mental, personal struggles that people has, and tapped into the strength that they saw delivered into that presentation. But mostly people that will put them on a pre-start boards, or before they go down in the pit, they will put them on there and come out. It will be the first thing, or next to their beds. Or I've got so many photos of the nut, and it's such a significant symbol with the 6 sides of that little 12mm nut, which shows the 6 sides of what I give them, and I also hold it up there, and it all just comes together, and it's such a simple little thing, but it's so powerful to have that anchor in your hand when you have that moment where you got to take 5 seconds and take a step in the right direction, or wow, that gut feel, I got to tap my mate on the shoulder and say that gut feel is in, and that nut represents all these things. When I make an agreement in the morning where the supervisor says, look, put your hand up if you don't agree to going to do this safety thing today, and nobody puts their hands up because, they got the anchor and the agreements and, the whys, and all these things just falls into place. And I've done it to the cultural transformation to quite a number of mine sites, and to see a team with camaraderie start to develop this voluntary operational discipline. They are truly intrinsically motivated and held each other accountable in the morning when they say, let's make an agreement. Are we all on the same page? Because I do a mission statement for them, and they all their values align. All the team's values will align, and everything important to the team becomes now something that they contribute to something bigger than this, just themselves as a team. And now they start to believe and buy into their systems and for each other, if not for anything else. And when you formulate something like that for a team, and they go out in that workplace and they keep each other accountable because their mission statement is there, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Yeah.
Would you say that your approach, the messages you give, that they can resonate with both the people on the front line and the leaders, the higher ups?
Yeah, 100%. So it's a totally different ball game when I speak to just higher ups, or when I do speak to the front line of the teams. And it's just the energy and the words that different. But the message is 100% consistent, the same. If they can't be held accountable, and personal responsibility and ownership in the leadership, it will trickle down. And that is what the leadership is all about. You have to have the buy-in from the top all the way through. So when I do these workshops with them, I normally start with the manager and saying, you need to buy in, and then we go to the superintendent, supervisors, and all the way down. If there's a missing link somewhere, it's going to break. So it is vital for everyone to understand the importance of the foundations, the bedrock foundations, which this is sitting on. Otherwise, it'll just be another program.
Starting to wrap up, I'm really keen for our listeners. What's some general advice you've got for our listeners, considering we've got a wide range of listeners from different roles and different working groups as well. So if you were to summarise a couple of key advice, what would you say?
I think the first thing I would say is most of our workplaces, the legal side of it, the paperwork, the take fives, those things are in place. They're magnificent. They've been spending a lot of time and money on that. It is the buy-in to that we need. That is there. That's the foundations of the paperwork. It's there. It's to get the buy-in. To formulate buy-in, you need to align what is important to your workforce, to every individual, align that to a team, and align those values to the company. And once you get that, there's such a mature culture that starts to cultivate from the ground up, because then they believe. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but I think the most powerful way of doing that is through emotional connection. And before, there's a few little tips and tricks that you can do. And before you send your people out to work in the morning, and you spoke about all the technical stuff, just before they go out, get them into that limbic brain quickly and say, all right, are we all down? Are we all good? Are we doing it for each other? Is this your highest values? Are we still aligned to our values? This is our mission. Is anyone not aligned to our mission? Yes. So that all those little questions goes, yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Now you go out in the workforce, and the correct brain that will tell you when something's going to go wrong is activated. And because our neocortex is so strong and powerful, we have to teach that emotional brain a lot more, and that's the way forward for smaller, larger and mega companies is that's the way to do it.
Theo, what a journey you have been on and continue to go on. I'd love to know what is next for you. What's coming up?
I've there's so many bright things coming up. I'm so excited. Not only have I been in the fitness industry now for a couple of years and really evolving my story, because it always needs to become better and bigger. I've met this amazing woman. Oh, she's a hottie. I don't know if you're going to have to cut that out.
She's sitting behind the camera.
She's right there. I'm looking at it. Yeah. And we met about 5-6 years ago and been married almost a year, just over a year.
Congratulations.
Together we are strong. So she's my biggest fan. She's my marketing manager, and she does all my socials and everything. So that's a big bonus also. And we are going to go into the world scene. I've now, in the last 2 months, I think I've joined, 5 or 6 speakers bureaus globally. So I'd really want to go and target big audiences. I want to go and target conferences and forums and places where I can make a larger, wider difference, because I am at the stage now where my career is at its peak, and I can only go up from there. So I've already got a few overseas gigs. I've done 7 or so countries before, but I really want to go out and go big, but also then tie that into my fitness and health, and keep me and my wife occupied with that.
You two are certainly unstoppable. Theo, thank you very much for joining us on the Fatality Free Future podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, Theo. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fatality Free Future podcast. Head to our Fatality Free Future hub on barclays.com for more information and to access everything we spoke about in this episode.